So we discussed the other day a U.S. soldier by the name of Aaron Bushnell. He was in the Air Force, and he went to the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., and he recorded a video. He said, look, I can no longer be complicit in genocide. What's going on is unacceptable. What I'm about to do is the most extreme form of protest to try to stand up to this and shine a light on it. And he lit himself on fire. He self-immolated. And he wound up dying, by the way. Now, you know, we showed the video on this. By the way, we got knocked hard for that video, bro. We got knocked hard. We got hit with, and of course, we got immediately demonetized. But then we also got like age restrictions on it and all sorts of stuff. But I mean, it's kind of incredible, isn't it? Right? Like, we're talking about what should be the number one news story in the country, and you're getting knocked on it. But the video's insane also because you have, I thought it was either a police officer or an Israeli embassy security guard, but apparently it's a Secret Service agent, comes up and is pointing a gun as he's on the ground, like melting in front of our eyes. He's pointing a gun at Aaron Bushnell as he's on fire. And you have the paramedics like, I don't need guns. I need fire extinguishers. Just such a bizarre video. But look, there was, in the wake of him doing that, there has been some heated discourse going on. And the sense I get is conservatives and Republicans are just going, oh, mental illness. He's mentally ill. It's that simple. That's what they're saying. And then you have sort of like resistance liberal types, Democratic types who are like, you should never glorify suicide. Obviously, something is wrong and this is bad. And, you know, they're taking maybe a slightly more moderate in tone approach, but effectively kind of saying the same thing as the conservatives. But yeah, it's mental illness. Just, you know, slap it aside. Just mental illness. Well, look, as I said in my original segment on it, I'm not so sure it's mental illness. I'm not. Because there have been historical incidences of people self-immolating. And there are times where if it's far enough back in time and if the cause was just enough, people look at it and they go, you know what? That was actually kind of heroic. That was actually kind of brave. There's the classic example of, what was it, the Buddhists during the Vietnam War. There was something floating around on Twitter which had like Hillary Clinton was holding up a picture of somebody who had self-immolated, and I don't know the specifics of it. I don't know if it had something to do with India or Tibet or something like that. But it was the glorification of that. There was an Obama video going around where, again, he sort of praised an instance of self-immolation. So look, depending on the context and the cause, people do say like, well, this one I actually think is kind of brave and it is kind of courageous. And so like, it's clearly not a hard and fast rule that people apply across the board. Anytime anybody self-immolates from now until the end of time and throughout all of history, it's always been mental illness, and that's the end of the conversation. That's actually not how people view it, right? But in this sense, they're bringing it up to say, oh, I think it's mental illness. Why? Usually because if you dig a little deeper, you find that the people who are saying that, they just don't think the gravity of the situation that he's reacting to is what it is, right? So when I look at it, I think, sorry, I do think it's brave. I do think it's courageous. Here you have a guy who is part of the United States military. He comes to believe, I think, based on a good reading of the empirical evidence, that we are arming and funding and backing a very straightforward textbook case of genocide. He looks around, he sees all of the schools bombed by Israel, all of the hospitals, all of the clinics, all of the mosques, all of the churches, all of the marketplaces, all of the factories, all of the homes. He sees the nearly 40,000 Palestinians that have already been killed in this short time frame. He sees the nearly 15,000 children who have been killed. He sees a total siege where they're keeping food, fuel, water, electricity. He sees 70% of the humanitarian aid being blocked from getting in there, so people are starving to death right in front of our eyes. He sees children having their legs amputated and their arms amputated without any anesthesia. He sees literal hell on earth. He sees stories where 5-year-olds have said, I think I'd rather die than go. He sees all of that. And he's so shook to his core. It's such a moral outrage. And he feels somewhat responsible for it because he's part of the U.S. military that he decides, you know what? This is as just a cause as any, and we need to do something extreme to try to shake people out of their complacency. And he decides to do this. Does that have to be mental illness? Does that have to be mental illness? Because I got to be honest with you, where I see it is much more likely to be mental illness are the pictures coming out of Gaza with all the Israeli soldiers holding up lingerie of Palestinian women whose houses they raided. I saw a picture today of an IDF soldier inside a crib holding like a Tweety bird stuffy. This is in the house of a Palestinian family where we don't even, that baby might be dead. That baby may have starved to death. That baby might be in a hospital. That baby might be laying under the rubble somewhere. And they're taking a cute little picture in there, snuggling up to a Palestinian child's stuffy, joking around, ha ha he he. The videos of the people ransacking stores of Palestinian merchants who have no connection whatsoever to Hamas. I see so many more examples of what could be mental illness on the IDF side than I see on the Palestinian side. I'm sorry. It's just true. So, but look, again, our response collectively in the United States appears to be whatever is sort of with the dominant narrative and the dominant position is explained away or just accepted as okay. But when it's somebody who actually stands up and tries to shine a light on the absolutely horrific moral atrocities unfolding in front of our eyes, it's like, well, that person is mentally ill. I think it's very flippant. I think it's very dismissive, and I don't think people are giving it its due. Now, nobody should. I'll say right now, I don't know if it's controversial, but yeah, don't harm yourself, right? Don't do it. Don't do it. There are better ways in terms of making an impact to try to fight back, right? And try those examples. Try those paths, right? Like, I don't think anybody, just as a warning, like nobody should actually go forward with that because, you have your own friends, you have your own family members, there are other ways to make an impact that you could engage in that are not that extreme and that severe. But he clearly felt like he needed to do something that extreme and that severe to try to, however he can, to spark some change. And by the way, historically, there have been examples of that happening and then it leading to some sort of spark or change, okay? So, but anyway, this is a long-winded way of me now talking about this. So Glenn Beck, on his show, he comes out and he's going to basically piss on the grave of Aaron Bushnell. And, God, there's so much to say about this. This is gross. Now, I don't know why he's dressed like a cowboy. I don't know why he's going full Brokeback Mountain on us. Half the time, the motherfucker looks like Colonel Sanders. Half the time, he looks like this. I don't know what he's doing. Is he acting like he's a kid on Halloween? He always dresses kind of weird. Let's see what he has to say.
I just want to dwell here for a minute on this suicide and the praise. When you saw somebody set themselves on fire in Washington, D.C., and he was a U.S. Air Forceman, what was the first thing that went through your minds, Stu? First thing.
He's insane.
Now, by the way, as I pointed out in my first video on this, would that be the reaction if there was a German citizen? As we learned, the Nazis were doing a Holocaust and they had gas chambers and they were killing millions of innocent people. If a German citizen or a German soldier lit himself on fire in protest of what Hitler was doing, would that be their reaction? Would that be their reaction? No, they probably say brave, courageous, moral compass functioning properly, right? Well, look, I don't know how to get this through the head of people who are so blind to the realities on the ground, but that's how everybody's viewing what's going on right now in Gaza. It's at that level. It is at that level. So, and analyzing the situation in that way makes perfect sense. I'm sorry, but they go, right, oh yeah, insane. Okay.
In D.C., and he was a U.S. Air Forceman. What was the first thing that went through your minds, Stu? First thing.
He's insane.
Yep, that was the first thing that went through my mind. What insanity. What insanity. It's not going to change anything. And you have to be insane to light yourself on fire. Okay, what was the second thing that came to mind?
The Arab Spring.
Really, the Arab Spring?
Yeah.
That was the guy who was in the cart.
Yeah, he set himself on fire. And how this setting yourself on fire has some history to start movements
revolutions.
and revolutions, yes.
A history to start revolutions. And are those revolutions from the right or are those revolutions from the left?
Typically the left.
And the guy who said he had a food cart in Tunisia and he set himself on fire, which kicked off the Arab Spring. Did the media and all of the people that were somebodies praise him or say that he was a bad guy?
They praised him.
They praised him.
Well, by the way, that's not what they're doing here. They're barely talking about him, if they talk about him at all. And they're also trying to hide his motive. That's what's happening now with Aaron Bushnell. That's a fact. They're going to act like that's not the case.
So now let's see. Seems like if we have a box of things to do, just a whole checklist, seems like we've checked off the Arab Spring, okay? We are now praising this. Think of MAID up in Canada. MAID is medical assistance in dying. This is ideology prized over life. They are now allowing people who are handicapped, have mental disorders, to be killed. What? I mean,
all right, hold on. I'm gonna play this out in just a second. But let me say this: you want to have a debate around the edges when it comes to physician-assisted suicide? I think that's fair, right? There's an open question. I'm very libertarian on social issues, live and let live. But there's an open question in my mind. Should we strictly regulate it to limited circumstances where you could legally take your life? Or should you just say, hey, freedom's freedom, including the freedom to die. So, whatever. Very few rules and regulations around it. But would Glenn Beck say to somebody who has stage 4 cancer and is in excruciating pain 24/7, they should not be able to legally end their lives if they so choose? Surrounded by loved ones, going a peaceful way that doesn't hurt? Is that what he would say? Because he's doing an attack on physician-assisted suicide here. I want to know, what are the limits of that? Are you saying in no circumstances ever is it okay and acceptable? Because I think that's crazy. And I think that's, by the way, deeply anti-freedom, and it's hilarious because, he'll be out there pretending like he believes in freedom more than anybody else on another day.
Have we forgotten what happened the last time that this was done? Think about the DAs releasing criminals back onto the streets. We know this is not working. Some of us knew this was bad when they said we're going to reimagine policing. But
Trump has 91 criminal charges. He's already been found liable for fraud a number of different times, and you still suck him off. Oh, tough on crime. Unless the criminal is Donald Trump or Netanyahu or Wall Street goons who do fraud as a business model and steal from regular Americans. Spare me the tough on crime nonsense.
Again, is ideology more important than life? The border, keeping it
Is ideology more important than life?
Open. That ideology is more important than human life. Keeping the border open because of fentanyl, more important than human life.
The border's not open, you absolute fucking lying jackal.
We are becoming a culture of death. And this suicide and the praise from notable people in America that this is heroic is a very big signpost we just passed. Ideology over life.
Okay, I can't. Guys, the whole point of what Aaron Bushnell did is to say, you need to start caring about Palestinian lives, about innocent civilians, about infants and toddlers and grandmas and grandpas in Gaza who are being murdered and carpet bombed on a daily basis. The whole point was, for the love of God, value their lives. Let me shine a spotlight on it. Let me do the most extreme form of protest to shake you out of your complacency. The whole point was care about their lives. And he comes out here and says, we're glorifying ideology over life. You can make an argument that the people who are against Aaron Bushnell are doing that. The ones who are trying to call him mentally ill, they're doing that. You're doing that. God, man. What I've learned from doing this show is that it doesn't matter how black and white a scenario is. It doesn't matter how few shades of gray there are. People will debate literally anything, right? They will look at a textbook genocide and rationalize it and justify it and obfuscate and deflect for it. And that is just a hard thing to swallow. Because you think, wait, I thought on some core level, I thought we all agreed on some things. That's not true. That's not true. And Glenn Beck can come out here and totally mangle and twist reality to be the opposite. saying, oh, yeah, we're valuing death. This is ideology over life. We're celebrating death. Tell me again who's celebrating death as you guys cheerlead the carpet bombing of children in Gaza, 14,000 dead kids, and you guys still want to send money to Netanyahu, still want to send weapons to Netanyahu, still want to do a wider war in the region with Iran and Hezbollah. Tell me who's worshiping death. Tell me again. Jesus Christ. So pissing on the grave of a brave U.S. soldier who did the most extreme form of protest to stop a genocide. Pissing on the brave. So, by the way, let's end on this facetious note here. But this is what they did to us for years. So I'm going to just throw it right back in their face. Why do you hate the troops? Why do you hate the troops? This sounds unpatriotic. This sounds un-American. You're criticizing a brave U.S. soldier who's a hero? Why do you hate the troops, Glenn Beck? I can't stand these people. All right, guys. That's the show. I love you all very much. Everybody do me a big favor. Subscribe to the channel. Helps out massively in the algorithm. Costs you absolutely nothing. You know the standard pitches that I make here. Shameless plugs. Click that like button, click that subscribe button, click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. Please consider supporting the show on Patreon. I've never made a deal with an advertiser. You guys help fund the show from the ground up. So that link's below if you'd like to help, or you could tip with the YouTube thanks button as well. You can sign up for Crystal Kyle and Friends. All right, I love you guys. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.